All right. So much has happened since we gathered here a year ago. I don't know about you guys, but the past year has been full of ups and downs. But for some reason, quite honestly, it was a bit melancholy as a year. I'm sure that the condition of these greens the last 2 years had something to do with it. To be honest, I'm embarrassed and disappointed to be hosting such generous people under these conditions. It is a humbling experience to have things that are out of my control alter my best laid plans. So for one last time, please accept my apology for the conditions of the greens. I guarantee you will not experience anything like this next year at Bushwood. As many of you know, I recently celebrated the 1-year anniversary of both my parents passing. I'm not going to kid you, it was a tough year for me. To be without two people who have known me and been there for me, although in different ways, since I was born. I really had no concept of how it would feel to be without two such important people in my life. I had waves of sadness that would wash over me at different times. I didn't really know where it came from. I only knew that I felt as though a part of me was missing. Literally like a piece of my chest had just vanished and I was left sort of with a tear in my soul. I felt weaker. I felt lesser than I had before, and I began to question whether I could sort of carry on in a joyous way. There was just sort of this vacancy, and I felt quite melancholy. This year, having spent 18 years being a part of partnering and building a firm, and the relationships, experiences, and memories that come with that, many of which are represented in this room, it became evident that I had to step down from the leadership post of my firm. This was not a decision that I solely and outwardly came to. I've been fighting the tide of my firm for 18 to 24 months, pushing and hoping that my way would be more effective than the way that the firm wanted to push me. A little advice for those of you with those grandiose ideas: never bring a knife to a gunfight. To my disappointment, someone else had a grander plan, and it just couldn't include me at the helm if I didn't believe in the business model and the spirit in which I was being asked to move forward. I was hopeful the firm would come around. Well, that egotistical view turned to a humble experience when my firm and I negotiated my departure. Again, experiencing feelings of less than and a little failure as I floundered around the belief that I had let my colleagues down. And honestly, the pain and sadness of realizing that I no longer was the right person to lead what I considered to be my father's legacy. Again, a little melancholy. This year, my daughter became a senior at Dickinson College. My oldest son moved off to his freshman year as a fighting blue hen of Delaware. While I'm extremely excited and happy for both of them as they're ready to experience these really important and exciting times in their life, I can't help feeling a little tug at my heart as they move on to live life without my perceived daily guidance. Another little piece of me goes missing when they leave. Will they still need me? You know, another opportunity to feel a little less than in another melancholy moment. But what is it about all these situations that bring me into the sort of this little place of sadness and perhaps even a little self-pity? For me, I need to help. I need to ask for help at times like this. As a matter of fact, I need to put my ego aside every day and push myself to ask for help and guidance on a regular basis. This is what removes my self-centered view of life situations. Asking for help is the very act that humbles me enough to realize that there are many ups to my very few downs. If I can see around my own desire to control outcomes and reach out beyond my own thoughts and experience for help, things will be okay. And I will live a much happier, joyous, and free life. My parents may be gone, and I'll always miss them. But if I pause and ask my wife, my siblings, my friends for help, then I get to a place that tells me I don't actually have a tear in my soul, as I thought before. I have an ache in my heart, but I also have a life full of loving and kind people who can help make my soul whole. When I needed to stand before a church of people at my father's memorial service, I asked for help. I asked my siblings for family support, and I heavily leaned on my wife, both figuratively and literally, as I wrote and delivered my eulogy at my father's service. Without asking for help, and of course receiving it, from so many, including quite a few people in this room, I would not have been able to feel what I needed to feel in order to pay a fitting tribute to my dad. As I mentioned earlier, I officially separated from my former firm in June. A fair amount of emotional confusion, bouts of questioning myself followed, so I've continuously asked for help. I've asked for ideas, assessments, and opinions, and for opportunities that I might pursue at the end of the summer. And the result's been a different sense of competence and confidence than I had before. It feels deeper and more exciting because I've reached out beyond my own thoughts and fears of what people might be thinking to a place of acceptance and curiosity of what lies ahead. Moving on is never easy, and self-assessment and awareness are even more difficult for me if I don't ask for others' perspectives. I believe I'm a member of the largest room in the world, the room for improvement. It's so much easier to accept life on life's terms and grow as an individual if I continuously ask for help. Lastly, the melancholy feeling brought on by my older children moving on with their lives. I have shared this feeling and asked many friends for help so that my load may be lightened by their shared experiences. And in my case, I'm blessed with an honest and open relationship with my current and final wife that in turn created a 4-year-old constant reminder of just how needed I really am, and more importantly, of how much I want to give. After all, do our kids ever really stop needing us in some fashion? When I first wrote that line, it was a little tongue-in-cheek. I was thinking about money. They're always going to come back and ask you for money. Then last night, my 19-year-old freshman son called me up to share that one of his high school friends had just been the driver in an accident that killed a passenger and seriously injured 2 others. Drugs and alcohol were found in the car. And my son's friend faces charges that could potentially put him away for 25 to life. So my son called me to ask for help in dealing with this terrible life situation that horrifically altered the lives of so many people in the blink of an eye. He knows he can ask me for help because he's seen me do the same thing. In fact, he saw me ask for help when I caught him using drugs and alcohol himself. That call was a small miracle in an otherwise devastating tragedy. I teared up when my son was telling me of his friend's ordeal. I teared up in sadness of what had occurred, and I teared up in fear of what might be for my son. So I will ask for help with that fear so that I don't wallow in it and drive myself crazy over my lack of control over my son's destiny. For I'd be worrying about something that may never be at the expense of missing out on the adventures and joys of childhood that is living in my very house today. It's really quite simple. When I'm asking for help, I'm getting out of my own head and creating the opportunity for intimate and lasting relationships, rather than allowing myself to be trapped in fear, a sense of frustration about the unknown. I started this summer feeling depressed and lonely because I missed my parents. But through seeking and receiving help from others, I was able to recognize and feel the blessings of the memories of my parents, the camaraderie of my siblings, and the love and partnership of my wife. I started the year feeling disappointed, less than, because I could not force and control the decisions and directions of my firm. But through discussions with others, I'm filled with renewed energy, vision, and drive for a fulfilling career that will excite me every day. I started the school year feeling sad and missing my kids. But after my son called and asked for help last night, I am filled with a feeling of love and gratitude for the relationship he and I have built. I started my Saturday night really pissed off about the condition of this course because I was worried that you would all be disappointed and that would be a poor reflection on me as your host.
You were right.
When I asked for help, who was that? They're not coming back. Who was that? When I asked for help from others in this very room, I came away believing that I've done my best and that the event is really about helping children to get educated about the misuse and abuse of alcohol and other drugs. In 1985, my mother fought through her fears and anxiety of the unknown and asked a man named Don Cutler for help with her son's problem. That was my drinking problem. She was scared to death, and rightfully so. Don Cutler, the founder of FCD, the charity which you support here today, performed the intervention that turned my life around, stopped me from living all those dark days in fear, doubt, and insecurity, and started me on my journey to a life of blessings. Ups and downs, yes, but blessings above all else. Every year, FCD brings that hope and opportunity to thousands of students around the globe. Through prevention education, Don Cutler's legacy of helping others to help themselves lives on. And so for that support, I am eternally grateful. Last night I paused on my writing of this speech in order to send my 56-year-old sister a note. A note that I hoped would encourage her as she started her treatment for lung cancer today. I cried when I sent her that note because I have no idea what she faces ahead. What I do know is that I'll be asking for help in dealing with this as time goes on, because I've learned that sharing makes things easier. That is not my first instinct, but I've learned that it is the best way to move through life and find enjoyment in my relationships and peace in my heart. So, a feeling of melancholy? I'm going to cut myself some slack given what I've experienced this year, but I'm not going to settle in it. I'll look outward and find things to be grateful for and ways in which to show my gratitude, just as Don Cutler did. I'm extremely grateful for all of you for your support of FCD and the amazing work that it does. Every year, your generosity is a constant reminder of how helpful people can be if you just ask them. Having you all here brings me great joy because it helps me feel as though somehow I give back to Don Cutler for all he did for me. I read yesterday, it's not the joy that makes us grateful, it is the gratitude that makes us joyful. And I want to thank you for giving me that. And now, I would like to introduce my current co-trustee at FCD, Emmett Line.